The Civil War remains one of the most pivotal moments in American history, shaping the nation's future in profound and lasting ways. While the battles and strategies of the war are often studied in depth, sometimes the men in the uniforms are often ignored. I'm talking about the generals who commanded armies, made critical decisions, and led their troops through the chaos of war. The rank of general represents the pinnacle of military leadership, carrying with it not just authority, but immense responsibility. They didn't just issue orders from behind the lines. Most led their troops through the thick of combat, embodying the courage and leadership that defined their command. Despite the Confederacy's cause being widely condemned for its defense of slavery and secession, it's essential to recognize that these generals displayed remarkable bravery and military expertise. Their legacy, though complicated by the cause they fought for, stands as a testament to their military skill, leadership, and determination. So, if you want to know more about the top Confederate Civil War generals, you can open a history book or simply keep watching this video. Before we dive into ranking the Confederate generals, I thought I would give an honorable mention to John Bell Hood. At the outbreak of the Civil War, he joined the Confederate Army and quickly rose through the ranks due to his aggressiveness and bold tactics. Renowned for his aggressive leadership, he was promoted to temporary full general on July 18, 1864, and given command of the Army of Tennessee during the Atlanta campaign. At 33, he became the youngest officer on either side to command an army. Historian Bruce Catton argued that replacing General Joseph E. Johnston with John Bell Hood was one of the most consequential blunders of the Civil War, stating, quote, "The decision to replace Johnston with Hood was probably the single largest mistake that either government made during the war. Period." End quote. Hood's aggressive tactics led to a series of costly defeats, including the failed defense of Atlanta and the disastrous Franklin-Nashville campaign, which effectively destroyed the Army of Tennessee as a fighting force. His leadership decisions contributed to the rapid collapse of Confederate resistance in the Western Theater, hastening the Confederacy's ultimate defeat. While his aggressive nature once made him a rising star, his command of the Army of Tennessee serves as a cautionary tale of bold leadership taken to an extreme. Hood sits as an honorable mention because his promotion to full general was never confirmed by the Confederate Senate, and he reverted to the rank of lieutenant general on January 23, 1865. Before I dive in and rank the 7 Confederate generals, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, me, Major History. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Doing both of these really does help, and it allows me to continue to put out more content such as this. Thanks for watching or listening up to this point. Now, let's go rank some Confederate generals. Starting off with who I think is the worst Confederate general, at number 7 is Samuel Cooper. Born in 1798, Samuel Cooper graduated from West Point. In March 1861, he resigned from the U.S. Army and soon after accepted a commission in the Confederate Army, where he became the Adjutant and Inspector General, the highest ranking officer in the Confederate Army. Despite holding the rank of general, Cooper was never placed in command of any army in the field, nor did he participate directly in combat. His organizational skills were vital to the Confederacy, but he is largely remembered as a behind-the-scenes figure rather than a frontline commander, and because of that, he ranks last on this list. Coming in at number 6 is Braxton Bragg. By the outbreak of the Civil War, Bragg had an established military career. When the Civil War began, Bragg aligned himself with the Confederacy. His early success in organizing and training troops in Pensacola, Florida, led to his promotion to Major General and later to Full General in 1862. Despite his strategic capabilities, Bragg's leadership was plagued by internal conflicts with his subordinates and his failure to effectively build on victories. While Bragg played a significant role in the Confederate war effort, his legacy is largely defined by his strained relationships with other officers and his failure to achieve lasting success on the battlefield. One private, Sam Watkins, who later became a professional writer, said in his memoirs, quote, "None of Bragg's soldiers ever loved him. They had no faith in his ability as a general. He was looked upon as a merciless tyrant. He loved to crush the spirit of the men. Period." End quote. Watkins' portrayal of Bragg reflects the dissatisfaction many of Bragg's soldiers felt towards him. His leadership style was often seen as harsh and authoritarian, which contributed to the strained relationships he had with both his officers and his enlisted men. If it weren't for Samuel Cooper's lack of combat experience, Bragg would certainly rank last on this list. Starting off the top 5 is P.G.T. Beauregard. Born in 1818 in Louisiana, Pierre Gustave Toutant Beauregard graduated from West Point in 1838. By the outbreak of the Civil War, Beauregard had an established military reputation and was quickly appointed as the first brigadier general in the Confederate Army. He became the first prominent Confederate general after leading the successful bombardment of Fort Sumter in April 1861, the opening battle of the Civil War. His early success continued at the First Battle of Bull Run, where his forces, alongside those of General Joseph E. Johnston, secured a crucial Confederate victory. Following his initial victories, Beauregard was transferred to the Western Theater, where he played a key role in the Battle of Shiloh in 1862. However, his leadership was criticized after he failed to press an early advantage, leading to a Confederate defeat. Beauregard's leadership in the early parts of the war helped solidify Confederate military confidence, but his later struggles and conflicts with superiors diminished his influence. His inconsistent battlefield performance and political difficulties prevented him from achieving greater prominence among Confederate generals. Coming in at number 4 is Joseph E. Johnston. By the outbreak of the Civil War, Johnston had risen to the rank of Quartermaster General in the U.S. Army, but resigned to join the Confederacy in 1861. Johnston was one of the highest-ranking officers to join the Confederacy and played a key role in the Confederate victory at the First Battle of Bull Run. However, his cautious approach and frequent conflicts with President Jefferson Davis hurt his effectiveness as a commander. After being wounded during the Peninsula Campaign in 1862, Johnston was replaced by Robert E. Lee. Later in the war, Johnston was given command of the Army of Tennessee, where his defensive strategy slowed Union advances but failed to deliver decisive victories. His reluctance to engage in direct confrontation led to his removal during the Atlanta Campaign in 1864. However, Johnston was reinstated in early 1865 to lead Confederate forces in the Carolinas, but by then, the war was nearing its end. He ultimately surrendered to William T. Sherman in April of 1865, weeks after Lee's surrender at Appomattox. Coming in at number 3 is Edmund Kirby Smith. Born in 1824, Smith became a prominent leader to the Confederate Army, where he was assigned to command the Trans-Mississippi Department, a critical yet isolated region of the Confederacy. Despite being separated from the main theaters of the war, Smith played a key role in repelling Union invasions. Though Smith was never given command of a major Confederate army like Robert E. Lee or Joseph E. Johnston, his leadership ensured that the Confederacy retained a presence in the West longer than many had anticipated. Smith was one of the last Confederate generals to surrender, capitulating to Union forces in May of 1865, a full 8 weeks after the fall of Robert E. Lee's army. Holding down the second spot is Albert Sidney Johnston. By the time of the Civil War, Johnston was one of the most respected officers in the South, with a strong reputation for discipline, strategic thinking, and leadership in various military engagements. He was appointed the commander of the Confederate forces in the Western Department, which included both the Western Theater and critical areas of the Mississippi River. He later took command of the Army of the Mississippi and led Confederate forces to early successes. Unfortunately, Johnston was killed in action during the Battle of Shiloh, a tragic loss for the Confederacy. His death left the Confederacy without one of the most respected commanders at a crucial point in the war, but his leadership style had shown promise, and his absence created a void in the Confederate command structure. And the number 1 ranked Confederate general is, as you may have guessed it, Robert E. Lee. When Virginia left the Union in 1861, Lee was faced with a momentous decision. Though offered command of the Union Army, Lee chose to resign from the U.S. Army and join the Confederacy, a decision that would define the course of his career. Lee was appointed the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, where he quickly became the South's most successful general. His victories at Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, and Second Bull Run are legendary. However, Lee's defeat at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863 marked a significant turning point in the war. The loss ended his offensive campaign into the North and weakened Confederate morale. Lee is widely regarded as one of the greatest military tacticians in American history. Although the Confederacy was ultimately defeated, Lee's legacy endures as a testament to the complexities of war and leadership, and he remains one of the most respected and studied figures in military history. All right. Well, there you have it. The 7 Confederate generals of the Civil War ranked from worst to first in terms of their contribution to the South and success during the war. Do you agree with this list, or maybe you have a different opinion? Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I love engaging with the mob, and if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future content. I post daily quizzes to test your historical knowledge, more videos like this, and I even have a history podcast for you to sink your teeth into. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all next time.